The Persian Empire, Part 2. Cyrus the Great may have begun the Persian Empire, but it was Darius who led the empire to its period of greatest splendor. Darius was nicknamed the King of Kings and thought that his empire deserved to be governed from a brilliant, new, and wondrous city. At that time, the ancient cities of Mesopotamia were already over 1,000 years old. That's very old indeed. Darius thought none of them were worthy of the vast and modern empire the Persians had managed to create. On a giant plateau around the year 520 BC, Darius ordered the construction of a brand new and magnificent city, the likes of which had never been seen before. And it was called the City of the Persians, or Persepolis. This beautiful royal city had something special about it. For most of the year, it remained uninhabited. That's right. Persepolis was inhabited only during special ceremonies, like the New Year ceremonies held for the spring equinox. During this festival, ambassadors from throughout the empire presented their offerings to the king in a huge reception hall, measuring over 12,000 square meters. That's as big as 23 gyms. The hall was supported by 72 enormous columns, rising 20 meters in height. The Medic Wars. Nobody was able to defeat the invincible Persian army. Nobody, except a few small cities on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. During the reign of the Emperor Darius, the Persian armies were moving towards the west and began conquering the cities of ancient Greece. But the Greeks did not want to belong to the Persian Empire and were not willing to pay tributes to the Persian king. Around the year 500 BC, some Greek cities rebelled and with the help of Athens, expelled the Persians from their lands. Emperor Darius, who thought he should rule the world, did not like this very much. And he set out not only to take back the cities, but to conquer all of Greece. In the year 490 BC, Darius sent an estimated 100,000 soldiers and a fleet of warships under the command of his son-in-law. The Persian troops anchored off the city of Marathon. The number of Persian soldiers outnumbered all the people of Athens, and the Greek army was tiny compared to the Persians. Athens seemed doomed. But what the invaders did not count on was the bravery and determination of the Athenians. Their lives were on the line in this battle, and because they believed that there could be no life without freedom, the Greeks fought so fiercely that they completely surprised the Persians. The Persians were defeated, and when they returned to their homeland, Darius was so furious that he made his son Xerxes swear to take revenge one day. When Darius died, Xerxes began a new war against Greece. In 480 BC, he gathered an army of warriors from all parts of his vast empire, a giant army of thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers.
Whoa!
Yes, people. The Persians had been so embarrassed and angered by their defeat that they were going to wipe ancient Greece off the face of the earth. 300 brave Spartan warriors in Greece, led by King Leonidas, managed to hold off the entire Persian army. But they were overwhelmed, and the Persians finally entered Athens, ready to destroy it. But there was no one there. A clever general named Themistocles sent all the Athenians to the island of Salamis, which lay opposite the port of Athens. There, Xerxes ordered his enormous fleet to attack, but the Greek ships were quicker and more agile, and began to sink the Persian ships one after the other. This was how the Athenians defeated the Persians' giant army for the second time. From then on, the Persians did not want to march against the Greeks anymore and left them in peace. This victory was a turning point for the Greeks. It strengthened their ideas of independence and freedom and began their greatest period of cultural splendor. End of the empire. When the Greeks defeated the Persians, it signaled the beginning of the end for the Persian Empire. the Emperor Xerxes returned to Persepolis. He was finally assassinated. The emperors who came after him lost interest in controlling the empire and were more interested in making as much money as possible. They continued to order the construction of bigger and more wondrous palaces. They spent bags of gold on a luxurious court where they would eat and drink and buy expensive clothes and have many slaves. All this excess and luxury was making them weak. It was then that a 20-year-old man named Alexander became king of Macedonia. He inherited from his father a realm that included most of Greece and a desire to defeat the Persians, who had attacked them many years before. In the year 334 BC, Alexander set off towards the east with an army of 30,000 foot soldiers and 5,000 cavalry. As he advanced across the Persian lands, he began to learn many things about Persian culture, and he admired them, even though they were sworn enemies. The final confrontation between Greeks and Persians was at the Battle of Issus. Alexander defeated them and burnt the royal palace at Persepolis until it was reduced to ashes. He then continued on towards India. When he returned, he was known as Alexander the Great, and he governed his empire from the legendary city of Babylon. There, he married a beautiful princess named Roxana. Alexander wanted to create a world where customs and peoples could blend together in harmony, an idea he may have gotten from the Persians. The legacy of Persian culture. Once Alexander had conquered the ancient world, new and ambitious plans occupied his mind. His dream was to fuse together the refinement of Persian culture with the Western thinking of the Greeks. But unfortunately, Alexander died very young, at the age of 32, and his empire was divided up amongst his generals. Many new dynasties were formed: the Ptolemies in Egypt, the Attalids in Asia Minor, and the Seleucids. The dream of a universal empire of the Persians was now lost and would never achieve the same heights again. But Alexander's dream of blending Eastern and Western culture slowly began to come true. Over time, the art and spirit of the Greeks was introduced into Persia and even reached India. And the West was enriched by the refined culture of the Persians. From this cultural enrichment came architectural masterpieces and the building of the first canal and many other refinements, like the postal system. It was the Persians who first domesticated animals like the chicken and cultivated delicious fruit like the peach and orange. They began the decorative use of flowers like roses, jasmine, irises, and daffodils. And even today, the Persian knowledge of weaving produces the world's finest rugs. Because of all these things, as well as the efficient way in which they managed their enormous empire, the ancient Persian civilization continues to be a huge influence on our modern society to this day. Let's dig a little deeper with our time compass and find out about the history of the Library of Alexandria. Ptolemy was one of the generals who fought side by side with Alexander the Great. When Alexander died, Ptolemy took charge of Egypt and based his government in the strategic city of Alexandria. There, he ordered the building of a library that, according to some, was destined to house all that had been written by all men throughout the world. Can you imagine? You see, Ptolemy, just like Alexander, was very interested in preserving and spreading knowledge from Greece, Persia, and India. The Library of Alexandria grew until its collection numbered almost 500,000 papyrus scrolls from throughout the world and included a museum, a zoo, and even its own laboratory. Slowly, Alexandria became the center of science and learning in the ancient world.